Are you stressed and nervous when you have to speak in front of an audience? Is your heart beating fast? Are your hands shaking or sweating? You are not alone. I was an overthinking perfectionist. And in this video, I will share how you can become a confident speaker. And stay with me because I will give some tools, practical tools, and different techniques that you can use to become a confident speaker. So let me start the presentation. So let's talk about how you can overcome the fear of public speaking and become a confident speaker. But first, what is the fear of public speaking? It's a very common fear. It's so common that according to some surveys, people are more afraid of speaking in public than to die. Can you believe it? And it is so common, it has even a name, glossophobia. Did you know that? You probably know all the symptoms. You are stressed, anxious, you feel your heart beating, you're frozen, you forget the words. That's normal, yeah. But the fear of public speaking is very often related to other fears. For example, the fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear to be embarrassed, fear of making mistakes. But the good news is the fear of public speaking is a mind response, which means if it's a response of the mind, we can change it. We are not born with the fear of public speaking. But it's complex, right? My story. I studied PhD in Prague. I was working in 2 companies for 14 years, and I had a lot of fears. I was afraid to be judged, afraid to make mistakes. I was a perfectionist, overthinking. I was afraid to be different, and I had a lot of confidence issues. I overcame these fears. So if I did, you can as well, right? How fears are learned in childhood or youth? There are different ways. The first is the direct experience, which means, for example, a child in the kindergarten or at school, he has to learn and repeat a poem, but he forgets the words. It's not easy for a small child. And the other children start to laugh at him, and he feels embarrassed, afraid, and he thinks, I don't like to speak in public. And here the fear starts. Another way is the observational learning. Very often we acquire our fears from our parents, from our teachers, from different people who are other role models. Because how do we learn the reality? How do we learn our view of the world? From the people around us, especially when we are children. Another way is verbal information, which means we receive a lot of information and they can create fears. For example, during COVID, we didn't know what was it, COVID. But we received a lot of information from the mass media, and we started to be afraid because this information were really scaring. I was afraid. What about you? Another way how we acquire fears is conditioning. You probably know about the Pavlov, the scientist, researcher who did experiments with the dog and the bell. And what did he do? Something very easy.
every time before he was giving food to the dog, he was ringing a bell. And the dog has learned, when I hear a bell, I get food, and started to be excited. Yeah, like food, food, food. In this way, we can learn to associate an emotional state to a place, to an environment, to a situation, like speaking in public. By the way, I didn't teach this trick to my cats, but every time I touch a plate, they have learned the trick and they come because they think I'm giving them food. But coming back to the conditioning. So we learn when we are young or in many situations to associate an emotional response to a situation, for example, we associate fear to school or fear to the office or stress, yeah, and then every time we are in this situation, our emotional response kicks in. Cognitive development is another psychological way how we acquire fears. And how does it work? When we are children, we don't know how the world works. But then we grow up, especially when we go to school, and we learn about social dynamics, and we learn that not only the teachers can judge us, also we learn also from the parents, yeah, if we don't behave well, but that people can judge us, and we start to be afraid. I want to explain you deeper how this happens, because it's not only the first time, yeah, we have a negative experience, and this negative experience creates an emotion and a thought. For example, the child who was reading the poem in the kindergarten or at school and made a mistake, forgot the words, and the other children started to laugh at him, he started to feel embarrassed, nervous, afraid of public speaking. And he started to think, I'm not good. I'm not good in speaking in front of other people. So this happens the first time, but this starts a cycle. And not only the thought, for example, I'm not a good public speaker, not only the thought affects the behavior, because then we start to, if we think we are not good in public speaking, we avoid opportunities. We say, no, I don't really want to speak in front of my manager, my colleague. Oh, do I really have? Can you do it? No, please. And we start to avoid the situation. This situation will reduce temporarily the anxiety, but at the same time, it will strengthen the negative belief. And again, the cycle continues until we break the cycle. How do we break the cycle? How do we overcome the fear of public speaking? There are different ways. And on the left, you can see the exposure theory, which means if you get exposed to the fear slowly, with time, you get over it. And so, for example, one idea is join a public speaking club. There are many, they are all over the world. For example, I was joining a public speaking club for 6 years, and I can confirm it really helps. But it takes a long time. You really have to be patient, because when we are afraid, we have a lot of resistance. Or you can also practice yourself. You don't need to join a public speaking club, in front of a mirror, or just you can record yourself. So exposure theory means if you are afraid of public speaking, go and speak in public more times, more often, and slowly you will convince your mind, your brain, that you're okay, you can speak in public. There is nothing to be afraid. And be very patient with yourself. Another technique, which is really nice, powerful, and at the same time very gentle and quick, fast, is hypnotherapy. Because with the power of positive visualization, relaxation, mindfulness, you can change your beliefs. You can change your fear. You can transform your fear in excitement. At the end, stress and anxiety are two sides of the same coin. And it's really so much quicker than the exposure theory. So if you don't want to expose yourself for years, this is a quicker way. They both work. You choose what is better for you. But the difference between the two is that exposure theory, how do you break the cycle? From the behavior. You change your behavior. There is resistance, of course, because of all the emotions. Change your behavior, you slowly change your emotions and beliefs. But with hypnotherapy, you work on your beliefs, on the thoughts. You change your beliefs from negative, you transform them into positive, and this will change emotions and behavior. This is why it's quicker, and it goes deeper because it goes into the causes. You also discover why you are afraid, and it's a deeper level. With hypnotherapy, you can understand the reasons and change in this way your limiting beliefs, so that, for example, fear and anxiety, they can become excitement. And fear of public speaking, as many other fears, is a protective mechanism. It's at the moment the child who forgot the words in front of the class of the other children, the fear that just wanted to help him to avoid the same situation. So we have to be very kind with ourselves, and if we have fears and we can overcome them, they had a role, they had a function, they wanted to protect us. So do not beat yourself because of your fears. Accept that they had a function in the past. But of course now you are a new person, so you can overcome that. Now I will give you some practical advice before a speech, because no matter which ways you choose, the exposure way, theory, or the hypnotherapy, let's say the mind way, changing the limiting beliefs, it's very important to do practice. Because, of course, if you have a speech in front of an audience, you don't want to be prepared. Yeah, you don't want to forget the words. I mean, you need to practice your speech in advance, especially if it's a prepared speech, like at work. Here, I'm not speaking about speaking in front of people in the street. I'm speaking about a speech, professional speech in a company and so on. So for this type of speech, of course, it's very important to practice. Again, with a friend, colleague, in front of a mirror, record your speech, watch it, ask for feedback. Very often, we are afraid of speaking in public, we are afraid of feedback. But feedback is very powerful. Feedback is constructive. It depends who is giving a feedback, but let's assume that you can recognize the people who can give you a constructive feedback. And this can help you to become not only a confident speaker, but a better speaker, great speaker. Another interesting advice, when you speak in public, very often when we are nervous, we use this so like, or we tend to repeat the same words, like you know, at the end of the paragraph, for example. And if you record your video, or other people can tell you, and then if you are aware, you can change. These are small things which will help you to have a great speech. Other advice: take pauses, breathe. It's okay. You don't need to speak in such a hurry during a professional speech. And gestures are great. I'm Italian, we use a lot of gestures, but you don't need to just use gestures in a random way. They should be aligned with your speech. But for example, when you speak and you have an audience, this gesture is showing you are open, you are explaining something to the audience. If you want to give free advice, you can say, I want to give you free advice. First, second, third. Yeah, that's another gesture which is aligned with the speech, which has an intention. Other gestures, or other how we use the body during a speech also expresses our confidence. And it's important to have a good posture, not like with the curved back, but to be standing, have a good posture. You can move on the stage, that's great, but have a good posture. And it's also important to learn how to have eye contacts with the audience. Look at different people in the audience. For example, somebody in the middle, just few seconds. Otherwise, this person and you would become uncomfortable. Somebody on the left, somebody on the right. And you switch between the people. So they will have the impression that you're looking at everybody. Because very often when we are nervous, we are looking downstairs. We try to avoid to look at people. But eye contact with the audience is important. And before a speech, it's important to use, for example, positive imagination, power poses. These are really great before a speech because they give you the energy. They already give you, they empower you. And then when you have a speech, people will see your confidence.
I hope you like this video. If you like this video, click on the like, write your opinion, your experience in the comment below. And if you have questions, write them. I'm happy to answer. If you are not a subscriber, subscribe to this channel so you can have more videos and insights, advice that can make your life better. Have a wonderful day.